Where's my daughter? Where is she?
We need to get Katie back. She was into crazy stuff. Certain accounts speak of a hypnotic power that renders his victims helpless. Some he haunts, and others he takes.
Slender Man. Only in theaters August 10th.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Wars. Prepare for Prattle.
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And it's been a hell of a wait for me and my collaborative partner to get together finally this year to talk banned movies. And not only is it coming to you from Spider-Dan and the Secret Wars, it's going to be coming to you from Femme On, another amazing podcast that if you're not listening, you should be. It's got some amazing women doing amazing things, and I love it so, so much. So I'm so happy to not only collaborate with Tonya Todd again, but to be part of the Femme On collective for this small opportunity. And it is a kind of a little bit of a warm-up for Tonya's Banned Books Week, which has just a chock-a-block, amazing, wonderful effort and idea that Tonya's consistently got going. And she's had amazing guests. I've been on it. I've done my best, but the titans that are reading those books are far better than me, far better read. But I add my opinions to them. And I'm going to be doing another one this year, but I won't spoil it just yet. But no, we are here today to talk Slender Man. We're going to kick off this collaboration with a very controversial film, controversial at the time and controversial in content and what it relates to. And is it a quality film? Does it deserve to be banned? Who knows? We're going to find out in this discussion. Tonya has put together some wonderful questions inspired by her Banned Books Week's questions, and we are not alone. We are joined by Superdummy Paul, and we're joined by Angry Andy, and I think we're all particularly angry tonight. But I want to thank you, Tonya, for again leading this discussion. So I'm just glad to have you as a creative partner in this.
Well, I appreciate you suggesting this collaboration. And I want to say that was such an intro, but my favorite part was she's had amazing guests. I was a guest on there. Wink,
wink. I do like to blow my own trumpet now and again.
All the time. Yeah.
Sometimes.
I'm just kidding.
No. I'm more self-deprecating than trumpet blowing, I think,
yeah.
most of the time.
Guest. You actually have been, and you brought insights that other people have not been able to bring. So don't sell yourself short. There's a reason I keep inviting you back, and it's not just because of your amazing reels.
Yes, they are pretty good. And I'm very much enjoying the latest book that we will be discussing. But we're not here to discuss that. We're here with Superdummy Paul. Welcome back to the show. We did our last one, I think, was quite a discussion. Starman, you and Andy returned for Alien Month. You two, yes. I always bring back for these months because I think you make a wonderful pairing and you match so well. And this was your choice, Paul. Slender Man was your suggestion.
You sort of say it was my choice. I gave you a list of 3 or 4 of them, and this was very much at the bottom.
I gave you, Tonya and Andy, a list of 150, and then you came back with 4. Andy didn't pick any, so and then Tonya picked that. So I guess we're all to blame.
Yeah, but we're all.
Blame. I didn't do any research about any of the films because I don't like spoilers.
Of course,
and
True.
From the list, it worked best. This was actually the last film chosen for what we were doing.
Yeah, correct.
So it seemed like, in comparison to the other films, this seemed like it was going to be a good pairing. But after watching it, I thought it was a good start. And I'm not
Yes.
saying that it deserved to be banned, but I am saying that I will never watch it or recommend it unless it's an example of what not to do as a filmmaker.
Speaking of what not to do, I'm sure Andy has some strong opinions today as well.
Well, can I just say it?
Do it.
Can I just say it?
Please, we're waiting for it.
What
Go
a
on.
dribbling wet fart this movie is. Just awful. Absolute awful. God awful piece of shit movie. Every cliche you can imagine done horribly wrong from top to bottom. Bland, uninteresting. Where's the horror? There's no horror. It was boring. Absolutely boring. And like it's supposed to be a cryptid horror movie on this created, fabricated fictional creature, and there's not a shred of interesting moments in it at all. The most interesting part of the film is the thing that you have to do after, when you go, oh, well, let's have a look at what the Slender Man actually is, and look at all the controversy around that. This film offers none of that. It doesn't even get into any of that. It's, oh, goodness me. Awful. Awful, just awful.
Don't know. I think he's a bit on the fence there. I'm not sure how he feels about it. I don't know.
No, I need to. I'll come back to you. I'll see if I can find some more descriptors.
Andy is always very wishy-washy with all of his opinions. I think
Very
we are.
guarded.
I think we're all in agreement that this film is atrocious. It is fundamentally, as Andy said, forgettable, uninspired. It feels like baby's first horror film. There's no characters, there's no progression, there's no dread. There is nothing you would expect.
Film, not just horror.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true.
Having never watched one,
Yeah. Aliens come down and gone, is this what horror is? I'll guess it's horror. No.
Yeah, it's horror by committee, except the committee is just completely inept. They couldn't put a bench in a park.
It's kind of like what would happen if AI wrote a horror film.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
that's very
yes.
true.
Yeah.
Except I think this probably does a bit of a disservice to AI. It blazes. It's that dreadful at times. It doesn't even know what it's doing. It doesn't know what it's trying to say. There's long moments when, I don't know, the film sort of changes the direction it wants to go. It's a supernatural horror. It's a, I don't know, is it a murder mystery? Who knows? Is it a missing mystery thriller? I don't know. Are they being killed? I don't know. What's going on? I don't know. Oh,
And at this point, I don't care.
yeah.
Exactly.
Halfway through, it's like, well, you've lost me already. And how long's left? Oh, for God's sake, another 45 bloody minutes of this bland,
I've
miserable
already
coloured film. It's so miserably coloured, and not in an intelligent
Grey.
way. It's just drained of colour because nobody can be asked.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be there, apart from poor Joey King, whose career is just tanked. Goodness me. What a waste.
Get back to those kissing booth movies, Joey. And they're terrible as well, but they're a bit more enjoyable than this. Jesus. Beige film, beige direction, beige colour grading. Yeah, awful. I think it's one of the worst films I've seen recently. You know the kind of shit I'm watching.
Oh, goodness me, yeah, Jesus.
Oh, that's saying something.
You know, it just...
Slender Beige, the movie.
It's dull. It's boring. Like there is nothing other than the Slender Man character, which they don't do much with or delve
They
into.
can't
that.
afford to. There's no
Yeah.
budget, so you don't even fucking see anything.
Yeah.
It's all in the dark. I had to close the frigging blinds so I could see what was going on. I was like, where is he? Is that him in the library? Oh, I don't fucking know. Is that him in the woods? Oh, no, that's me searching for my soul because this movie's just dribbled everything out of it.
We were lost in the woods trying to find the point for this film. That's what it was. I kind of wanted to be absorbed by Slender Man, turn me into a tree, and then I feel like I'd be part of something at least, instead of just disconnected, discombobulated, and disinterested.
I want the screenplay for this because I want to know, is this bad editing? Is it bad directing? Or was it always this bad? Was it always just, and then this happens with no relation to what happened previously. No explanation for this bad decision, you know?
No, I'll tell you what. I've done some research into this. I watched the documentary "Beware the Slender Man" and some other things. I've delved into the creepypasta lore, but this creepypasta was severely undercooked, in my opinion. But I'll get onto that and why the film is in the state it's in. I think once we finished our lovely questions that Tonya's prepared for us, do we have anything to say before we get on to the questions themselves?
Can't think of anything, to be fair, except to just say that obviously there is the contentious part of the lore of his creation, shall we say. And it's an interesting sort of analysis on, quite a lot of things, belief in the paranormal and how that can affect people in their general daily lives. So it's a good case study on that part. But everything else around it, the video games, there's video games, why? The movies, like why? None of them assist either dealing with the tragedies that happen or informing them either. They just, this film could have been clever in trying to sort of inform what the tragedies what the tragedies were and how they happened, but instead it just completely ignores them, does any real victims a disservice, and does nothing else, to add to the debate. It just exists as an easy cash grab, and it's dreadful, even more because of that. It's a pathetic attempt at capturing something that was already outdated. Dreadful, pointless, misguided, massively misguided, and I'm glad it flopped and failed. But it didn't really flop, did it? It earned 10 times the bloody budget. But in terms of critical, I'm glad it was just destroyed and has vanished. It's about to leave Netflix as well over here. Good, because I never want to see this piece of crap again.
Since it was your choice, Paul, is there anything else you want to say?
Well, as you can tell, we all highly recommend it. I think everyone should watch it.
Top tier.
Yeah, it's top tier. It's great. Yeah, it's wonderful. No, I think that there are a lot of things that if you dig deep enough, like Andy said, there's the hint of a lot of things that could have been, but it's just layered in a lot of sort of someone just took a paintbrush and went bleh over the whole thing. So yeah, it could have been, but as you say, we might touch on that later. It's
Well, what were your reasons for wanting to watch it? Why was it on your list initially? Like, why was it on any of our lists? Because you're the one who selected it.
Because it amused me. Because I wanted angry Andy's view on it. I think even on the list, I put a couple of serious ones, and then I put this one with a laughing face next to it. So that was why.
So you already knew.
Yeah, I watched this film. A friend of ours came. Yeah, a friend of ours came round.
It twice.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We the three of us were watching a film together, and then my wife fell asleep on the sofa, and the two of us were just chatting, and we were flicking through Sky Movies as you do, and we came across Slender Man, and I swear to God, it was like 1:30 in the morning, and we both just went, let's just watch it. So at 1:30 in the morning, we watched this, and we were none the wiser by the end of it. But it's all right watching.
So you made a bad decision to watch a movie about bad decisions.
Yeah, basically.
You trapped us, Paul. You trapped us.
Yeah. Yes. Welcome.
We trusted you.
Welcome to my pit of despair.
You are the Slender Man. You
I would
brought.
say, looking at the four of us, you look like the most trustworthy, and now we know.
Well, what can I say?
Shut up. It's all bullshit.
Never trust him. Never trusting Paul ever again.
Yeah, but show it to Tony and Jack, and then 3 hours later, they might have something to say about it.
Maybe. Tony find a way to find
exactly.
some reaching for something. He'd find something in pull all the black stuff out and the goo and
setting. Like wherever they were filming, it was a lovely countryside. That's the one thing I could say. There's a lot of green there, and I would have done more with it as a filmmaker, but
maybe showing the green.
Mm.
Yeah, it was lovely. It's a nice place to live.
Minus the child abductions.
Yeah, minor things, you know.
That no one did anything about. There were some flyers, but
Yeah.
it's all right. Well, you
Yeah.
guys can still go out and wander the neighborhood without any supervision or having to
I was
check
going to say the useless parents in this. No police,
Yes.
no parents.
All the parents just disappear halfway through the movie as well. It's like, we can't afford to have you in any more scenes. So when that girl's banging on that house towards the end of the
really
film,
felt like they just had,
nobody
like,
reacts.
the grip. Like, you could be a parent, just, you know. One of the PAs and one of the grips, you guys act like the parents for these 2 scenes, and then
Yeah.
they didn't even.
Maybe just a concerned teacher or anything.
Yeah.
No,
No.
just carry on.
Yeah. The only concerned one is the abusive alcoholic dad. That's the only one that's concerned about anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Turns up 3 times and then disappears. Never to be seen again. Really nice parental figure there.
Yeah. Great town.
Well, let's
Great
get
people.
into why we're actually here and why we forced ourselves to watch this, which was ban books. So Dan had this great idea that since I do ban books, we should do like a mini series on banned movies. And so here we are after watching our first film. Off to a great start, Dan. However, just because it's a bad movie doesn't mean that it should be banned. And so you two knew that this was going to be about banned movies. What brings you to that conversation? What interests you in the banned movie conversation that made you want to partake in this? We'll start with Paul, since Annie's muted.
I think it's an interesting discussion to have because there are a lot of sensibilities about what people like, don't like, what offends them. And art is important. And there are some important lines that people try and sort of hold on to. And I think it's a good conversation for society in general to keep having with itself about what it does with the lines and art and what people do and don't care about. I think it's an important discussion to have. So thank you for starting it.
What about you, Andy?
Well, art is always subjective, isn't it? As are opinions. So for me, I think as long as, in terms of crossing the lines, as long as films don't sort of delve into, portraying real acts of a horror or violence, whether that be terrorist violence, torture, things involving children, then I think it's always very difficult to try and suppress movies and books beyond those reasons, because there's always artistic reason and license behind everything, isn't there? It's when we cross the lines into legitimate sort of what can be considered, breaking the law, for me. Because there's a lot of movies out there that have been banned, even by the British Film Institute, in the past, that have been, released so that we can see them in this day and age. And you look back at it and go, it doesn't make any sense why that was banned. And it is purely just because of, bureaucracy or old ways of thinking. So for me, the interesting discussion is that, you should always be able to access the media and make your own minds up, but obviously you still have to be bound by what is, lawful for me. And this film in no way sort of breaks any of that. And I'll be honest, I can't really recall any film where I would say, that deserves to be banned. Obviously, there's a lot of banned movies out there that I haven't seen for good reason. But that's why I was sort of interested and happy to be a part of this, because art has been banned. Art that doesn't do anything. It's there. It's timeless as it is in one moment, and yet it gets banned or suppressed because they don't like the artist or the artist's opinions. But again, there are difficult conversations within each of those, especially when you look at certain musicians or certain movie stars that they fall from grace, or they get brought in on criminal charges for one thing or another, and you go, okay, you know, where do you draw the line with that? Where do you stop listening to them, or have them taken off the radio, or have their movies taken off, or have their art put away in storage for all time? It's an interesting discussion for me based on that.
And Dan, what made you want to do a series on movies?
I've tackled a lot of banned films or controversial films. This year, I seem to be tackling a lot with, even with Andy, with animal cruelty. Again, I'm not a fan of animal cruelty. I would never condone it. But however, if there is a film out there with it in, I am happy to watch it because I want to experience that film. And as it is, as the artist intended, uncut, and as we should see those things, as they were meant to be presented. And I think the idea of, again, I think for me, one of the earliest films I watched when I was a teenager was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which had been banned for many years up until that point. And I think it was the first time they were showing it on Channel 4, or Film 4, I think it was, and it had been banned for God knows how many years. And this was the first time they were showing it on television. And I was fascinated, and I watched a documentary about it. And I think there's always something to be said for controversial films. There was Simon Pegg said recently, he was talking about showing his daughter Blue Velvet for the first time, and she hated it. She couldn't stand it, and it is a dark, grim film. As much as like me and Andy like that film, I can understand why she as a young woman would not like it. But he said to her, art isn't, always meant to be entertaining, basically. It said it's meant to tell something about you. Art is to make you feel something, to evoke something, a feeling, a movement, emotion, or to inform who you are. And I think to challenge yourself and to reach out and look at things and see things that you're very uncomfortable with is a good thing, within reason. Obviously, you have your own boundaries and you have your own ideas of what you can and cannot deal with, and that's fine. But again, I think it is ultimately, sometimes it's good to get out of your comfort zone, and some of these films are definitely far outside of a lot of people's comfort zones, especially.
Yeah. Like, I don't know that this film was out of my comfort zone. It was just not good.
Yes.
But considering some of the ones that we have on the list, like, it's pretty mild,
Yeah, considering what we've got coming up, yes, this is probably the mildest, or I don't know if it's the least controversial, but we'll get into that in the other films as we discuss them.
I would say that controversial is subjective.
Yes, absolutely.
Some people, one thing is far more controversial than another.
True.
I think that speaks volumes for this film. Just because of the geolocation for which it was banned in itself. It's very localized, isn't it? It's a very localized banning. It's not an international ban. It's not a countrywide ban. It's a localized banning for a very specific reason. And on the one hand, you can't really blame them when you look at it. On the other hand, it's kind of like, well, it holds no connection to what's happened, and you have sympathy. But again, it's one of those situations, isn't it? So. Yeah, it's hardly banning worthy. I mean, I'd ban it from ever gracing my TV screen again, just because of the amount of bandwidth I used to watch this. Oh, and download speed and patience. But yeah, in terms of localized banning, I don't think you can blame the specifics, can you?
And that's kind of why it was one of the ones I chose it, because it was such a specific banning. I wanted to have ones that were quite wide and sweeping in several countries, and again, a variety of reasons, but also ones that were like, why was this ban so small? What was so specific about it? And that's why I wanted a good variety of reasons to be banned, and types of films that Tonya and us could choose from, as well as the reasons for the banning as well, and the different countries and various areas there were banned, and when they were made, and what kind of context we need for that and the banning.
And we'll get into the specifics of why and how it was banned a little bit later. other than, putting it on a list that makes us curious to watch it, what are the harms, if any, when a film is banned or censored?
What are the harms? I suppose the harm is that if a film is banned or censored, you're silencing the true artistic endeavor of the film, aren't you? So it's weird. So one of the weirdest sort of like censorings that brings to my mind is an unassuming one. It's Goldeneye, James Bond film Goldeneye, and in terms of like censorship from a British point of view, when the VHS was released, I love that movie. I've loved it ever since I first saw it. Even when I had to close my eyes because my parents went, "Oh, this woman's having sex with these men. You need to close your eyes." There's a bit of censorship for you. When it came to buying the DVD, a good 15 years later, when I was in university, I noticed that there were several headbutts added to the cut, and I was like, "What the hell? I don't remember these." And I watched that film all the time. I wore the VHS out, and I was like, "Well, what's this? These headbutts? Why are they in?" And it was all Xenia on the top doing the headbutt. She'd headbutted Bond. She'd headbutted, the Bond girl as well. I can't remember her name. Forgive me. And I was like, what's this? And then when I looked into it, and that was specific censorship because the extreme high level of violence. I was like, high level of violence? It's 3 headbutts. What on earth are you talking about? And it's archaic, and it doesn't really add anything to the film. It doesn't really make the film any less violent because Alec Trevelyan falls off the. Forgive me if you've not seen it. Spoilers, by the way. When the bad guy's killed, he's killed in the most dramatic, over-the-top way. Not only does he fall from a great height, he's then crushed by an immense metal satellite from about 400 feet up. And you're censoring headbutts? So what the fuck is this? So it's weird little censorships like that have always bothered me. Like, why? What is it that's affecting society so much with a headbutt? Is it because of hooliganism in the era of football in the the late 80s, early 90s? We don't want to teach hooligans how to headbutt like James Bond or Xenia on the top. Where you teach them how to throw people off tall structures in the middle of the Cuban jungle. I don't know. What do you want from me? So it's literally things like that that drive me mad. If there's a very specific reason to sort of censor something, whether it be graphic animal violence, like Dan alluded to in a couple of films that we've watched over the last 12, 18 months, then that makes sense in a way. But then within the context, especially the film that myself and Dan watched, where there's a bit of a kangaroo shootout, just to give it a very bland, basic sort of description, there's a specific reason in the film for it, and then there's a very legitimate reason as to why that actually takes place, not in the context of the film, but in the context of environmental management in Australia. And yet that's so controversial, they banned the entire blooming film. Well, okay. And unless there's a very specific reason, like I alluded to, whether it be glorification of terrorism or acts that have been done against people, murder or violence against children, then I find it difficult to agree with it, because there are so many untold stories of people that have been through so much. You can look at films relating to the Holocaust or films relating to persecution of other minorities across history. You can't ban those kind of things if they're telling you something that needs to be out there, something that needs to be taught to people. If people can't access that through the normal channels, whether it be in school or in public libraries, on the internet, then art is an open forum, and it should always be viewed as an open forum. So that's my thoughts. I've rambled on there a bit. I apologise.
Why you're here. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I think for the question, what harm is caused by the banning, I guess it kind of depends on your definition of the word harm, really. I mean, specifically banning a movie, does it directly harm people I mean, it harms the people that made it in a lot of ways. You know, for various means, like creativity, they're quashed, and what's the point of doing this work anymore if anything I make gets banned? I mean, some people make shit, so, you know, their creativity could have been a bit squashed. But, you know, other people, they work really hard on something, and something that may offend just a few people for some really random reason, and their work gets thrown in a bin somewhere. You know, it can harm people's creativity. It can harm the sense of art as a general thing for culture, you know. And it's important that we keep pushing boundaries and trying different things and expressing ourselves in different ways, because, you know, otherwise we just get stuck in a corner. And yeah, okay, some things push the line, but you also know that those parts of society exist anyway. So if you just hide it, then you're just hiding that part of society. And is that any better? Because they're still there.
Could also set a precedent for future films.
Yeah, exactly. You see it coming away from just from movies and from art. You see what happens when opinions are suppressed, and we've seen it countless times throughout history. You know, when opinions are suppressed, it creates movements. It creates, you know, people rising up against establishments for the right reasons, and for a lot of times for the wrong reasons. It's happening in the UK at the moment, and I won't say aloud what those are because of my own sort of career as it is. But you only have to watch the news of, you know, riots and protests as they are, and what those riots are about, and then what the government's done to a specific group. Again, I'm not gonna say it out loud, but a specific group, they've banned it again. They've banned it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. I don't know. I can't really get into that. But that's created, you know, another boulder that's moving and is getting bigger, and you have to counteract that. So you're counteracting things all the time, and that can happen and does happen in movies. You ban a specific thing, like horror movie, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, banned. Well, all it did is continued that growth in horror movies. Like, oh, people are upset by this. Good, we're getting the right reaction. This is what we want. We want horror movies that push boundaries. Who cares about the aristocratic British people who are banning this movie for 30 years? Just keep releasing them, keep doing more, and they did, and even Evil Dead for a long time. Goodness sake, there was nothing controversial or anything about that movie that deserved it to be banned. It's just, you know, dancing dead corpse of his wife at one point, his girlfriend at one point. You know, that's the reason that film was banned, and the whole elements of demonic possession and all of that, or can't upset the Catholic Church in the UK, so we'll ban that for 20 years. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing. I think we are much more open to different stories, aren't we? I think the harm for me is that we suppress vision at the expense of what it means for the wider audience in terms of informing people of better information. So we're not funneled down a singular path of information, which is what we see, you know, on social media a lot of the time at the moment. It's all funneled down to one specific path of negativity, which is, it's ironic given that I'm called Angry Andy, but it's, you know, see too much negativity these days, and is that not a form of harming sort of you know, control in a way as well, that when we're not seeing what's really there, it's just manufactured distrust. I don't know. God damn it, we're getting into some deep shit here, aren't we?
We're in the weeds. We're in the weeds.
Yeah, we're already deeper than the film.
True.
Very true.
Yes, we are.
I think the harm it does is, I think films, much like books, I think are wonderful agents of empathy. And I think to silence a group or a person or a view or an opinion or an exercise or an idea is dangerous. It can be dangerous because, I'm a straight white male, and there's films out there, if they were banned, I might not have related or understood other groups, and these films have opened up a world for me, or a subculture, or a culture that I've never known about, that I'd never maybe understood, or that I've never experienced in the real world, where I am, or in where I was born, in the culture I had. There's an opportunity to learn and to grow, and to find other people to connect ultimately. And I think you are stopping that. There's so many people out there who are still discovering who they are, young people who need examples, be it Black Panther, or be it, the latest LGBTQ plus film. We need that, not only for them, the people that identify with it, but the people who don't, but can at least understand or can kind of find that connective tissue between everybody, and fix those broken connections that we have in the age that we live in now, the lack of empathy that we have. I think that's the harm potentially banning movies could do.
Well, can you imagine a scenario where banning a film is the right choice or feels justified? And if so, what are the circumstances?
Again, sound like a broken record, but I think it is for me very much the glorification of violence against children, or if it's something that's painted as a very real thing. There's a difference between a horror movie where, like that new one that's come out with Weapons, I think it is, that looks really interesting. There's a difference between that and sort of if it's something that's far too real. I think that would be sort of like, actual children being harmed in a way, that they're crying or legitimately crying. I know some films do that, and it's always a bit like, oh, I'm not sure I agree with your process here in trying to make sure that child's crying for your impact of the film, if you like. And again, it is just real acts of terrorism or torture. No,
which is different from the banned book conversation, because with that, you're simply writing these things that may or may not have happened. Whereas with a film, you might be creating these scenarios.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. Is they always, for me, they're always the one and the same thing. They can still conjure up the images, can't they? But film is very, the image is given to you. You're not creating the image when you're reading the book, and you can in some ways when you come across something that's intense in a book, you can sort of detach yourself from it and go, wow, I'll close the book there for the moment. With a film, if you're in the cinema, for example, you've got the option to walk out, but it's still there playing at you in real time.
But what I meant was that you could be causing real harm to a child or real harm to an animal in the filming of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like it would be in a book. It's for imaginary purposes, but that doesn't mean that no damage was actually caused.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said before, me and Dan have watched a couple of films very, very recently where very real damage has been done, and it's not glorified in any way, but it's legitimate and it's real. Especially for animals, we've not watched anything that where there's any physical harm done to children to elicit a reaction, but it's the animals, isn't it? And it seems to be an easy get out, to have this animal's being killed in this particular way, and here it is on the film because of this reason. It's an easy get out, even if it is justified in context or in wider meaning. So yeah.
What are your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, I think deep down inside of myself, I would love to say, nothing should ever get banned, and we should see all this in some form or another. But the reality of humanity and the squishy idiots that walk around amongst us, when it comes to things that, like Andy said, if you're going to glorify something, if you're going to make it look like doing harm to a particular person or, you know, a group of or society or whatever, if that's what you're going to create, then there are people that are going to be out there and say, yeah, I could do a bit of that. And that's where it gets a little bit more difficult for my brain to sort of put together, because do we want to live in a society where our sort of freedom to put things out there then ends up with someone being harmed and we could have did something about it? That's the argument that the society is always going to have with itself.
But do you think that banning is the answer, or do you think there are other ways to check that behavior?
I'm yet to discover the other ways, is the problem that I'm having with my mind. You know, I'd love to say that we could do it so, you know, these things exist in the world, but they're not on general release. You know, like I said before, it's important that we know that this part of society exists. But then realistically, how would you even control that, especially with the internet and, you know, everything that it is these days? You can't control these things. You know, deep down inside of myself, I would love to say that we shouldn't ban things, but the reality is there are some things out there that I kind of struggle to see a different answer to. And I'm sure we can all think of, you know, movies, particularly movies and books as well, but they're not as, you know, for the reasons that you've laid out, they're not as much of a problem, I think, in the scenario that I'm putting out. But I'm sure we can all think of some sort of example in somewhere where a particular movie has glorified something and put a group of people in a room and said, yeah, let's go and do that. So I'd love to say I can't imagine a scenario, but yes, I can. And,
Yeah.
It extends even further than that, doesn't it? So we seem to always have every other year the whole argument of video game violence as well, don't we? And that's been going on since the mid-90s. And I can put you any amount of money on that this time next year, when the next Grand Theft Auto game is out, there'll be this discussion again about video game violence and what that does and how it impacts upon, you know, everybody. You know, does it infuse people to cause violence to others? Does it do this? Does it change people's brain chemistry? You know, I play video games myself. You know, I've never subscribed to that sort of line of thought, but there are those, like you said, Paul, that it does trigger things for some people, and I think it's about education first and foremost. I think it's about education and really sort of, rather than trying to suppress the idea, it's advising and informing the idea further to what is given, if that makes any sense at all. So, like with banned books, you don't ban the book. You keep it there. You keep it there available. And if somebody's got the curiosity to pick it up and have a read of it, then have that conversation with the person about what it means, what it entails, and what you know, what are their thoughts on it? How do they respond to it versus how you respond to it? And again, it comes to, you know, episodes of TV where they've got those disclaimers on now. Fine, have the disclaimer. I'm not a big fan of them because I think it should be, you should be able to watch what happens in it and then have the disclaimer after rather than before, because then you can have this, oh right, okay, so it's controversial for that reason. Having watched it, I understand now. Let's have a talk about it, rather than you going in going, oh, something's controversial here. I want to know what it is. You're almost preempting somebody being outraged, which is always a bit of a shame for me. So that it's a difficult conundrum that I don't think we'll ever solve in terms of how to manage and prevent something from being banned, or whether something should be banned. It's a difficult thing. It's all education, and it should always be education. And that could have been the case with horror movies. It's not real. It's this is presentation of an idea, presentation of a thought. It's not real. Let's have a talk about what responses that elicits with you, not just ban it outright and wait 30 years to release it and then still have those same conversations anyway. Oh my God, because I remember watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre and having that, oh, this is controversial because it was banned for however many years in the UK, and watching it going, Oh wow, it looks really old. You know, give me a break.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing for me. I think education is the key.
It's funny you brought up Grand Theft Auto, because my nephew, who is 8, my sister is allowing to play the last Grand Theft Auto. Again, not my decision, not my choice, but he sat there and he was enjoying himself. My dad came downstairs and he's like, oh, there's a lot of swearing in this. And he had no issue with the violence, but he was, oh, there's a lot of swear words in this. There's so much swearing in this. Can't we turn off the swearing? And I went, no, you can't turn off the swearing, because that's the art. You've bought this as its complete form, as the art that it's meant to be. They're not going to censor themselves. I said, you're going to need to speak to your daughter, his mother, who has let him and allowed him to play this game, and you can have that conversation. Of course, they didn't have the conversation because they weren't going to. But he was like, "Oh, so much swearing," you know. I was like, "Well, what do you want us to do? Do we take it off him? Then he cries. You know, what are we going to do?" But I think Andy's right. I think it's context as well and dialogue to have about this. Like, why is it controversial? Why is it banned? And what is the intention as well? Now, obviously, you can have good intentions and still offend people and still have things banned, or things can be misinterpreted and misconstrued. But I think there are films out there that are problematic for what they're trying to say. I think I said last year on your banned books when I watched The Lifeguard, which is a film it appears to be a romantic comedy, but actually it's a 30-year-old woman grooming a teenager. That, for me, is offensive. That, for me, is problematic, because the film is painting it as a wholesome, romantic, sexy storyline, but the facts are she's an abuser, and that's what I have an issue with, is, you know, that idea of someone going, oh, this idea isn't so bad, is it? Or, you know, what do you think of this? Is this really a bad thing? Like, that I have more issue than the violence, than, you know, anything you name, is that idea that somebody could twist something into something that's awful into something that's seen as a positive, or something that someone would like to engage in or do or believe. For me, that's again the reason why I think maybe something should or would be banned. But I still don't believe in outright banning myself. I think age ratings, I think disclaimers, like Andy said, for me are enough for me. But again, I know that children or people that want to see these things are going to find these things regardless. And again, I think it's down to parents and teachers and responsible adults to be the voice of reason and to contextualize what they're seeing and what they're taking from it and how they're understanding it.
So, Dan, I want to direct this next question to you first, because I feel like you do this quite a bit. But what is the value of watching movies that some find controversial?
What isn't? What isn't? I think I find something fascinating about it. I find something intriguing about it. I find something kind of taboo about it as well. I think there's a fascination that, if, you know, what was happening at the time, what was the culture, what is the current moral panic about? You know, is it violence? Is it sex? Is it, you know, whatever it may be? When someone tells me I can't have something, I kind of want to have the thing. Like, you kind of, like, well, I can't have it. You know, no one likes to be told no. You know, ultimately, nobody likes to be told no. So people say, oh, you can't see that, it's banned, you can't watch this, you can't see that. And what happens with banned movies, what happens with banned books, they go up in value, people hunt them down, they will find them because they've been told they shouldn't have them. or the people are reading 50 Shades of Grey and tearing the front cover off because they're ashamed to be reading it because they've been told it's porn or something like that. There's.
Well, I bought Mouse because they were about banning that.
Yeah.
Like, that comic book, the graphic novel that's in the style of the Second World War. I bought that because they were on about banning that, and I was like, well, you what? And that was only a few years ago, wasn't it? And it's been out for decades.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I own it. It's a classic graphic novel, and all it is it's the depiction of the Holocaust from the artist's perspective, but he just happens to draw the characters as certain animals. That's it. It's autobiographical, and again, those stories are maybe not told as much as they should be, and again, we're going to repeat the mistakes of the past if we don't remember them. It's just going to happen all again, and there's potential danger in that. And I think there is something to be said for lost media as well, like with the advent of streaming and the advent of, there's even a movement of anti-intellectualism, like I'm sure we're all aware of, but there's even movements that discredit certain forms of art, modern art, for example. People are going, oh, I don't get it, I don't understand it. I could put a bin bag together with a few bits and pieces and call it modern art. And that's dangerous, because you can discredit something with a genuinely good and positive message because you just don't like the art form, like you don't like musicals. So then you just throw musicals away. And I think almost banned movies are kind of a genre, and again are in danger of going extinct. That we're losing. If we don't have physical media, like 28 Days Later was not available anywhere. The DVD prices went up, and the latest sequel just came out, and you can't get it. You can't you until they decided to release it again on 4K. You couldn't get it. So I think it's good to spotlight things. Again, contextualize them, speak about them, make people aware of them, make people understand them, and what was happening at the time as well. I spent a lot of time on my podcast contextualizing exactly what was going on at the time and why it was made and what it's saying about society and the art form and what's going on in the world at that point. I think that's important for me to do, because I don't want to just do a film that has animal cruelty. I don't want to do Cannibal Holocaust and not talk about the reasons for it and why I'm covering it, why it's fascinating and why it's interesting. I'm not doing it because I love to see animal violence and animal cruelty and animal killings. Absolutely not. But I'm going to watch it in the form that it was intended to, because I want to get the full experience and experience it as it should have been, as it always should have been. And I've always hated, like Andy said, when they make edits to TV cuts. I'm always a big believer, if you can't show it in its uncut form at that time in the day, you don't show it. That's my belief.
Like when they show Liar Liar on ITV2 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and remove all the swearing jokes. It's a Jim Carrey movie. What?
Yeah.
Why are you removing all the swearing jokes? You literally cut 15 minutes out of the film because you don't have the jokes about the woman in the lift with him. That's completely cut.
Yeah.
Madness.
Yeah. But yeah, ultimately, I think there is something to be said for viewing and experiencing these things. Again, you can go in knowing the context or not, but I think that it's important to bring a light to them and what they're trying to say, what they represent, what they say in the modern context as well, and contextualizing for 2025, but also when they were banned and why were they banned, and also who was banning them and why were they being banned. Also, the people in the power, the people who are banning them, what is their objective, I think is very important as well.
What are your thoughts, Paul?
What he said.
You know what? I don't think I could say anything better than what Dan said, to be fair as well.
Yeah, pretty much. It's
kind of a thing watching controversial films.
Yeah.
So well done, Dan.
No worries.
So you kind of touched on this in your little rant, which I do not say to belittle it. Didn't mean it to sound like that.
No, it's good.
Some movies, when they came out, they weren't banned. They weren't controversial at the time, but when you reflect on them with a more contemporary lens, they become problematic to some people. And then other films are problematic from the start to those people. Does the era in which a film is made affect how you view censorship or banning?
Oh, God, yeah, I think absolutely. I think it does. It's never been more prevalent than now, I'd argue. I think when everything's so accessible in literally a split second these days, you cover controversy immediately, don't you? And all it takes is one viral sort of post denouncing something or highlighting something that's troubling to one person, and then that one person becomes a few hundred people, and immediately it people jump on it, don't they, and lambast it. I do think it is era based, and we're in. I think we've almost reverted back to what it was like in maybe the 60s and 70s in terms of suppressing and trying to ban, movies or discredit movies for what they put across. I can't think of any at the moment. I'm racing through my brain trying to think of something that's sort of coveted controversy in the last 12 months. And there will have been some, but for whatever reason I just can't bring it to my head. Maybe it's tiredness or what, but it always seems to be. It starts with like you see one Facebook post, don't you? And then if you click on it just out of curiosity, then you're bombarded, because the algorithm just throws those arguments at you. I think that's where it stems from in this era specifically. If there's one person saying this is wrong for this reason, as soon as you click on that, then you're subjected to multiple different accounts of why something upsets someone. You get the other side of it as well, you get the positive side, but this era is focused on the negativity. It always is, and it will be for some time, I think, sadly, until there's some kind of drastic shift. It's awful, really, isn't it, when you think about it? It's awful. Everything, you should be able to have a positive argument, if something is affecting somebody. And this is what I was saying before. It's difficult for me when they do put those labels on old TV shows. They weren't not necessarily harming anyone at the time, but when it was a different time, when people are looking at things differently, yes, thoughts change, styles change, meaning changes, but it was still somebody's thoughts at the time, and it's locked in time, isn't it? It is exactly like when you write a book. It's still locked in time. You can't alter the text of a book. I mean, you can, but then you're taking away from it, aren't you? And it's the same with movies and TV. If you edit them far too much, it turns out like the Star Wars movies, when there's just far too many edits in there and you can't remember what the originals look like, and you're hankering for the originals. And if you start doing that with movies where you say, oh, it's controversial now, so we'll go back and edit it because it's controversial now. No, you're doing something horrifically wrong. You can't go into a museum and go, Michelangelo's David, it's controversial. The classic Simpsons episode, it's controversial. We're going to cover it up because we don't think it's appropriate for this day and age. No, you can't. That is the piece. Sorry. That's the art. It's there. You have to absorb it, take it in. If it gives you that feeling, and it's giving you that feeling for a reason, and that's something for you to explore personally, religiously, if needs be. And it's the same with movies for me. If it gives you that reaction where you're like, oh, I don't like this is horrific, you can't demand its execution. You should be looking at the wider context of it. I don't know if anybody else has got any thoughts on that. Yet again, I've just rambled on.
No, I think you're right. I think there's a difference between the films that we're looking at now that would get banned immediately because they were designed to offend, or they were designed to sort of strike up some sort of emotion. There's a difference between those films and films where ideas have changed, or, you know, society has changed, and it's important that we look back at those things as they were to say, this is what society was, this is what society is now. You know, is it better, is it worse? That's for the person to decide as they're watching it. It's not for the person who has, you know, been given the power of the big button in the control room. That's for each person to look at it and say, you know, this is where we are, this is what I think of it, and to explore those things. I think there's a big difference from that point of view to, you know, things that are particularly designed to try and get people to do things, or, you know, filmmakers do it all the time. There are, I mean, Dan will have a list off the top of his head, filmmakers who purposefully create a film to see if they can get it banned. You know, and those people exist, and that's absolutely fine if that's what they want to do, but we also shouldn't lump those films in with the same group as, you know, Uwe Boll and an episode of Friends are not the same thing. I'm just going to...
No, but it's interesting to me. It's fascinating for me. I think me and Dan spoke about this a while ago. The amount of Western movies that will be lost to time.
Yeah.
Because there's a very specific degrading portrayal of Native Americans. You know, they'll be lost to time, and we'll never see them in the light of day. Probably some of them for a very good reason, but that's still part of the learning process as well, because we've moved on from that.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, we've moved on from that. We've got some classic Western movies that don't even have anything like that within them. You know, the degrading portrayal. I mean, the animated Peter Pan movie is a great example, and they have that disclaimer now, don't they, on that? So it's the education on that side. Is, look, filmmakers did this whether they, you know, this is what people want to see, so we're gonna make this film in that particular style. Do those films deserve to be banned, or should they be brought forward and going, look, this is the type of, you know, ideas that people were putting forward for the right or wrong reasons for, you know, a great many of them, I would imagine. But this is how we've moved on. It's part of that journey of moving on and doing something better than the mistakes that somebody else made. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be so many films out there that we've never seen and we will never see. And I'm not just talking Western, I'm just talking, you know, horror movies as well, you know, comedy movies from different countries that won't have, you know, our same thought process or our same way of thinking or view on life. And, you know, do they deserve to be banned for whatever they're saying? I don't know. I'd be interested to see what sort of Russian cinema's like at this point in time. I'd be fascinated to see what Russian cinema is at this moment in time. You know, not for any sadistic sort of point of view, but to see what is the general consensus of the population, because films are an extension of the population as much as they impact upon the population as well. And you can imagine the amount of films that are being banned there as well because of, you know, going against the established order in Russia. There's so many different angles we can look at in terms of banned movies, isn't there? I think that's always the most fascinating thing, as it always has been with books as well.
Anything to add to that, Dan?
What they said.
So I do want to piggyback on something you said earlier, Dan. How much weight do you think should be given to the filmmaker and their intent as opposed to the viewer's interpretation?
That's a tricky one, because the bigger the budget, the more involved the studio can be. And, you know, me and Andy and Paul have discussed films that have gone, you know, by the wayside or struggled. You know, we've discussed films that have had a lot of problems, no matter how much the intention and the original creator has in control of it, it's still, they kind of sort of have to surrender some form of power and in some ways money or context, or there's requirements they have to make to get the funding to do the film. So yeah, I think it is important. And I think there's a lot of films. I think this one especially has a very kind of, there was clearly an intention and clearly a story that was going to be there. And I think throughout the process of making the film and the stuff that happened before it and that's affected it, I think that has led to a compromised vision. And I think that's dangerous as well, because not only could you, upset the original idea, you can, again, recontextualize it. You can put scenes here and there or change shots. You can completely change a film through the editing process, which is, a lot of people say a film is saved in the edit. And I think that is true. But again, I do think you need somewhat of a guiding hand and, producers that believe in that vision and are happy with that for the most part, but also not so much that the creator is completely tunnel vision and they won't change, or, they become like a dictator and they won't, accept any critique. I think it's hard to say. I think it depends on the individual and the people they're working with and their relationship that could inform how the film eventually turns out.
How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I think the intent does matter, and I think that's where a lot of the the examples that have been brought up here, where you're having to put warnings on rather than sort of go back and change things, because at the time the intent was just to do something normal, So I do think it matters for how we look at it and how we approach it. But also then that's just where the whole idea gets more and more murky, because, someone could do absolutely horrible things and think that their intent is amazing. I've imagined some of the most horrible films that were made in the early 1900s, the people that were making them thought, this is going to be great. So, there is certainly an element of intent that we need to be aware of, but, we also need to be aware of that people are just, people are people. Again, it comes back to that, how do we make that decision? How do we turn around and say we don't agree with that person? If a film came out tomorrow and we can all turn around and say the person may have a wonderful intent, but actually all of society is looking at him thinking you're an absolute wrong-un. But, who knows? Maybe 50, 60 years down the line, society will turn around and say, actually, that guy had a point. I couldn't possibly think of an example, but you just don't know what today compared to 60 years ago, compared to 60 years' time will be. So it's important that things get made, and it's important that things, to Andy's point, it's important that things are held on to in one way or another. Even if it's in a dusty archive somewhere and someone says, you know what, I don't think society's ready for this now. Let's see how it goes. Intent matters, but I also don't know then how we factor that in and create an answer to that. So I'll just turn myself around in circles there. So yeah, good.
It is difficult, isn't it? Like Dan said, I think it's a delicate balance between one thing or another. We see it countless times where a director's singular vision has resulted in spiraling costs or epic fallouts from with the cast or whatever. Their singular vision, their intent on the film has detrimentally impacted it. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum, like Dan said, where studio interference has just completely ruined the vision or intent and created a completely alternate reaction where audiences have just turned against it completely. It's a difficult balance. I don't think there is any one specific answer for for movies in particular. I think smaller productions, I think you're more likely to get, a better sort of artistic vision. And if they're trying to put something across controversially, it's more than likely to be managed better in a smaller enclosed environment, a smaller budget, a smaller cast, where those conversations are clearly had between cast members and whatever. But then if you have a much bigger film, then you lose control, or you can lose control, or your vision can become so narrow-minded that it pollutes everything else. Like a film called Heaven's Gate, I don't know whether anybody's ever watched that. It's like a 4-hour movie that just spiraled completely out of control and lost the vision.
Andy, it's on my list.
Is it on your list?
We'll get to it.
Good God.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it, Andy. We're going to do it.
Get you to that.
You and me, we'll do that one.
Yeah, it's an example of just absolute insanity in the mind of one person who believed their own hype, and that can be a danger as well. They can believe that what they're saying is the most important thing in the world, and yet it covets controversy for the wrong reason. They may not intend to create that controversy, but the narrow-mindedness and the unwillingness to adapt and add in other thoughts detrimentally impacts on the film, and that's when you see people rising up against movies, or saying, "Oh, this is too woke," or "This is not woke enough," or "This is this and this is that." And again, we're seeing that in this era of movie landscape, aren't we? The last 15, 20 years, it's been this bubbling ecosystem, which has now bubbled over, and is continuing to bubbling over. It's continuing to boil over, and who knows where it's going to simmer down to at this point. I don't know. Yeah.
So now I want us to get back to talking about this particular film.
Yay.
Dan, can you tell us why this film was banned?
Yes. So within Wisconsin, I want to say Waukesha, there were 2 young girls, both very lonely, both bullied, both had access to the internet, both had some mental health issues that they'd inherited from their family. And they discovered the creepypasta, which is a set of kind of online horror stories or photos and ideas. And the most popular of those was Slender Man, who is this almost Pied Piper character who can be seen as an abductor of children or a savior to children, that they are taken away from their lives, their suffering, their parents, their bullies, however you want to view that character. Again, it's kind of almost like a Candyman thing. It's kind of almost metatextual now that his legend grows. He's the internet's boogeyman, so to speak. And unfortunately, these 2 children, both 12 years of age, bought into this legend, this myth. So much so, they wanted to become one of their proxies, one of Slender Man's servants. And the only way to do this, they said, was to sacrifice something. Much like in the film, you have to sacrifice something to get that, to be part or connect to Slender Man or commune with Slender Man. So they decided to take their friend, I think her name was Payton, and one of the girls' names was Morgan, and they went to a kind of woodland area, not unlike the stories and the images we see, not unlike the film and in the stories of Slender Man. And they decided between the 2 of them, both kind of egging each other on, that they would stab this girl and sacrifice her to Slender Man to become one of his proxies. They stabbed this girl, who's also 12 years of age, 19 times. And then after they'd done it, I think they tried to run out of the town. Luckily, the victim was found. Amazingly, they saved her life. The paramedics saved her life, so she survived. And these two children, it was decided by the state, Wisconsin decided that they would try them as adults. So they have only recently both, within months or so, one of them has been released to a lower security psychiatric facility, and another one was released, who didn't do the stabbing, was released and is with their family, but they are wearing a tag, and they are allowed nowhere near the victim and their family. So yeah, that is the story. I do recommend Beware the Slender Man, the documentary, which goes into much detail about this, and you get a real idea. The documentary never says anything is particularly to blame, doesn't blame the internet, the creepypastas, the movie, anything. It just gives you the facts. You know, these kids have a lovely upbringing, loving parents that you see, but unfortunately, where they were in their lives, their mental problems, and access to the internet and these stories has led to this tragic event. Luckily, nobody lost their lives, but they are now basically incarcerated and have lost most of their lives now by being incarcerated, tragically.
And then how does that connect to the banning incident?
So not more than a couple of years after, Sony, a big studio who's known for not making always the best decisions, especially in regards to Spider-Man, they decided they were going to make a film based on the creepypasta, but not necessarily on the events that led to the girl's stabbing. The father was unhappy. The state of Wisconsin decided to ban it in 2 counties, especially the one where the stabbing took place. And a lot of people felt like this film was a cash grab, and glomming onto the tragedy and the news and trying to get free press, which could be argued. The film was made. The film was filmed in its entirety. However, the studio said they wanted it to be PG-13 because they wanted to capture a young audience, which again is a controversial choice. But also there was several scenes in it that were cut or reworked or re-edited. Andy's dreaded word, the reshoots happened, and which has led to a very compromised film, in my opinion. It is not scary. It's not interesting. The characters come and go, things kind of happen and they're referred to that we have no idea. Sometimes I feel like the scenes are out of order. So controversially, though they wanted to kind of glom onto the popularity of it, potentially, of this character or of the event, the fact that it's been related, and again, they did get cold feet, which is why they asked it to be cut and to be edited in a certain way, and it's got a very tacked-on voiceover at the end, which makes me think that wasn't the true ending of the film. So that has led to a compromised vision, as opposed to it coming out and it being seen in its complete uncut form. We got a compromised vision that still came out, that still made, like Andy said, some money, the budget back, not a roaring success, due again to the controversial nature of it.
And so this banning you mentioned earlier was very specific just to these 2 areas, these 2 counties.
Correct. Yes. So it was not banned through North America or anywhere else. It was purely because of this event in this state, and in these 2 counties took it upon themselves when it was announced that they would ban it. It would not be accessible or viewable due to the tragedy that occurred, and the idea that it may inspire others to commit such other crimes or atrocities, or similar of a similar nature. Even the wooded area they bulldozed and made a park out of, because they wanted to again kind of erase or stop it from happening again. I don't know. That's a choice I don't know if I would have made, but that's what that particular county did of Waukesha.
So I will say I was surprised to learn how mild the banning was for it to be one of our choices, and the first choice. It was, wow, that was not a huge banning.
No.
The film itself is kind of middling, and then the banning effort almost understandable, almost respectful.
Yeah, I'm not a parent, but I do have a nephew, and I can understand the outrage and the anger. Again, would I outrightly ban it? Probably not, but I can absolutely understand why it was banned or why they decided to do it. I can empathise with that and the tragedy and the feelings that particular event left on this state and on these counties.
What do you guys think? Was it a reasonable ban, or do you think they should have just allowed people to make the choice for themselves and boycott it if they didn't want to go?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of being respectful, isn't it? I think the family quite clearly raised concerns about it being released in their area, giving what was very much a very high-profile international, story. Because we heard about it over here. I remember it being, put over here. So I think in terms of it just being a mark of respect, the family doesn't want it here. Then fine, we'll do the right thing. Let's not show it here and keep it very localized. And like you say, it's only 2 counties. I can't attest to how big counties typically are in the United States, but if people wanted to see it, I guess the option was that they could go to a county that was showing it, or like it is now, it's widely available on the internet, isn't it? Whether that localized banning is still in place in terms of internet release or whatever, I wouldn't have thought so. But in terms of it being released, in a public house, in a cinema, or anywhere else like a drive-in movie theater, then in terms of just it being a mark of respect, I think it's justified on that regard, isn't it? There's nothing else in this film really that I could attest to it deserving any wider of a ban at all, really. It's no, it's
to even create the movie.
yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean that's on the studio, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
We've had that countless times throughout the decades of movies, haven't we? Where something gets created which is distasteful. How quickly did some of the movies based on 9/11 come out? I mean, goodness me.
Yeah.
It was almost like a couple of years later we've got a film starring Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
It's like, man, we've not even had time to really breathe and process everything. Even as a UK citizen, it's not had time to breathe and process, and the films are already out. It happens all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A tragedy happens, and then we get a film almost immediately because it's jumping on the zeitgeist as it is. And the zeitgeist at the time was the creepypastas, wasn't it? It was these ideas. We've moved on from Bigfoot movies or Loch Ness Monster movies, alien movies, to these fabricated stories that people create on whether it be Reddit or 4chan, whatever it is, to create illicit responses from other people. And that's what happened with Slenderman, wasn't it? It was created by this one person, and other people added their stories onto it to elaborate the story of Slenderman, to create the deeper legend, which is where these 2 girls sort of latched onto it. They became fascinated by the growing legend and the stories, which is, it's all totally fabricated. And it's even more, there's more detail within the Slenderman stories than there is on Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. And those are these very famous cryptids, and it's bizarre. I remember reading through them myself, and there's a myriad of creepypastas out there, and yet they're fascinating to read, but you can understand in one way how somebody could get absorbed by that fascination and be encompassed by that fascination.
Yeah, and I can't say I condone banning it, but I can say that I understand why they did so in those areas.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's one of those things. It's done out of respect. You can completely understand the decision, especially for the local community. They probably don't want, media turning up in these places with all the cameras and the cinemas and asking people how they feel, etc., etc. It's best just keep it away. It is interesting a decision was made to only ban it in the 2 counties. It's sort of one of those things that you would think these days it'd probably be, the whole of the state would ban it. They'd try and make some sort of point out of it. Even the fact that it dealt with the sort of topics that it did, the fact that it wasn't banned just to make a point somewhere else in the world is quite interesting. Look at the things, the Dungeons and Dragons and all that sort of thing, the reaction that people have had to that, but for some reason this wasn't. And I just find that interesting that, obviously different themes, but for similar reasons, people might look at it and say, yeah, we're going to ban it out of principle, but it wasn't for some reason. I just find that interesting. But yeah, it was done in a respectful way. You can't really argue with it too much.
One of the few banned films where I was like, but this is rubbish. Why would they ban this? Like, at least ban a good film. Yeah. Like, please.
At least make me feel sorry for the film.
Like, people will probably search this out, based maybe on this podcast, based on the banning. They'll be like,
oh, God, don't.
Oh, it's banned. Oh, I better go find this one. And please don't. Please don't bother. Please. Go and find something else.
It's much more interesting just to bring up the Wikipedia page, which I've got open right here, right now. It's much more interesting just to open that up and read that, because it goes through everything. It tells you about the development of this film, tells you about the development of another film. A couple of films that have been, that the original creator of Slender Man has fought against and won, court cases against. Popular culture, the copyright infringements, folklore qualities, there's a whole ream of things that are much more interesting to read in here that go through, the controversies and, the impact that this innocuous character has created, in the lives of these very real people. It's much more interesting to read this and to look at any other sort of news article as well. And you alluded to the fact that those two kids have been released in one form or another. It's much more interesting to read those articles than it is to watch the bloody film, because the film does nothing to add anything. It doesn't add to the conversation. In fact, it detracts from the conversation because it doesn't offer an opinion. It's like you said, it's fundamentally a fucking cash grab, and it's a disgraceful cash grab at that, because it doesn't covet the controversy. It doesn't, and what I mean by cover the controversy, it doesn't tackle it head on and give us an answer or give us a reason to consider it. It's not a worthwhile endeavor at all. It's quite literally some horrible suit in an office at Sony headquarters went, let's make some fucking money, shall we, boys? And that is it. There's nothing else to it. There's literally nothing else to it. Sorry.
We can't argue with that.
I think we're all the same. We all feel like we've not wasted our time, because I think this discussion has been great, but the film is not deserving of your time. Andy's right. You're better off just reading and looking at articles, watching the news footage. That documentary really did disturb me and creep me out, and made me think about this situation. And again, you spend time with the families and the dad, and and this is before the film even came out. This documentary was released the same year, I believe. And I highly recommend that. That gets that image of Slender Man and the memory and the documentary footage of the police footage of these young girls and how they're discussing why they did it and what reason and what happened and who said what and who did what is far more eye-opening and fascinating and disturbing than the film could ever possibly be. And again, I know there's a lot of people who are interested in true crime and that sort of stuff, so I'm sure they could get fascinated into that. But it's a horrible tragedy, and it's a pointless endeavor. Again, if it was good, I could maybe argue that it shouldn't have been banned. but I think because it's in such poor quality as a film, I couldn't even broach or think to
that it
defend
shouldn't
it.
have been banned, but it shouldn't have been made.
Yes, well said, well said.
It's just really weird. They obviously, as you say, they obviously wanted to do a cash grab, but somewhere along the line, they suddenly had a conscience and went, are we doing the right thing here? And then just completely turned itself upside down, did all sorts of weird things with it, decided that they didn't want a full release in the cinemas, so they
You're
kind
so
of...
kind. You think that they were a conscience and not that they were afraid.
Yeah.
To me, it felt like, people are going to be upset about this, so let's not commit to anything that we're doing. Not, oh no, we might harm someone. Let's not show that. You're so nice to think that there was any kind of conscience or kindness involved with this.
I just don't understand the decision, because if they wanted to make money, they could have just gone for it and they would have made lots of money. But they didn't. They just sort of panicked, and I don't understand the decision. They completely changed the film. They cut the theatrical release short. They scrapped it in loads of places. They threw it out onto the general release. The trailer is for a different film entirely.
They buried it or tried to bury it. They didn't like, oh, let's have a big premiere. They just literally were like, let's put it out, it's out, and let's try and make some money back.
But that's the point. They released it anyway.
Yeah. They still really, if they really cared.
They didn't do the Batgirl thing and use it as a fucking tax write-off.
Yeah.
They still released it anyway, and it still made its budget back. It still made a profit. So it still made a profit. So Sony won.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're cowards. And cowards for it. And thank you for releasing Madam Web. I hope you enjoy those negative returns.
I enjoyed watching Madam Web more, which says something. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's pretty bad. I think Madam Web is enjoyable if you're with friends, you know what you're going in for, and you've got like a beer ready to hand.
You have more of those drinks there, Tonya. It's very good if you have more of those drinks.
Yeah. Focus on the drinking.
So, any final comments before we wrap up?
No, I can't think of anything.
No. Thank you for giving your time to this cause.
This is why I put them together, Tonya. You've got nice Paul, naughty Andy.
Hey, whoa, hey.
Very naughty.
Oh, Paul's naughty as well. I've seen him.
That's our secret.
The last 30 seconds have been more titillating than that entire film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree. Well, before we finish, guys, I just want to thank you all again. Like Tonya's thanked you. Thank you for joining us and sitting through that film. But I have really enjoyed the conversation, and Tonya's questions have been fantastic as well. But yes, this is only part one of our grand tapestry that we are hopefully going to put together very, very soon. I won't tell you what comes next. We'll leave that as a surprise for now. But I just want to kind of thank all of my kind of patrons who help Prattle World keep on turning, and two of them are with us right now. So we've got Tony Farina, I Am Jack's Musings, Simon Cotton, Paul Meller, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, Math, Scott Hodgson, Ria Carrigan, Sarah Coyne. Again, thank you for your continuing donations. Paul, where is yours?
You're making me look bad.
What's going on, Paul? What's happening?
A nice one.
Give me the monies. Give me the monies.
Problem, I'm too nice. Too many of you have podcasts and Patreons. I can't do it. It's either all of you or none of you.
All right,
I have no money left afterwards.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll allow it. But yeah, thank you again, guys. This has been again a wonderful discussion, and we've got many more to come in our warm up to the Banned Books Week. But thank you, and as always, prepare for prattle.